Well, hey folks, Real Honesty with Joe Mitlin. This is my 20-year reflection on the WCW Monday Nitro episode from July 6, 1998. And this, I'm going to be honest, besides Goldberg versus Hogan and the hype really around that, and maybe a little bit of hype for Bash at the Beach in 98, this was a shit show. This was thrown together. This was ridiculous. It was poorly paced. 12 matches on this show. 12 matches. And I think the longest match was Goldberg versus Hogan, which shows you just how little bit wrestling actually meant back in the Attitude Era. Some of the Attitude Era episodes have aged pretty well. Some of them have not. A lot of it has to do with Russo. Russo was in WWE at the time, but I mean, look, there's Baron Russo, because Vince Russo's an idiot. There's my one per show. But this episode was all built around Goldberg and Hogan having their match on free TV, which I didn't agree with. I still think they should have saved it for a pay-per-view, hyped it up a little bit more. Gotten a big buy rate. Is what it is. It's still got a big rating. WCW is desperate for ratings because WWE been kicking their ass by this point. Even though the ratings are still close, they were still winning, handily for weeks on end after this. Like after April 13th, 1998. So this was like nearly 3 months later, and I think it was their first ratings victory in 11 weeks, or a few weeks at least. WCW was starting to lose their grip on the whole thing. Even as things were booming, and Goldberg was super over. I mean, whether I like Goldberg as a wrestler or not, whether I think he was very good or not, the man was super over. And this show was built around him. It was in Georgia Dome, his backyard, where he played for the Atlanta Falcons for a bit, a couple seasons or something like that. And he had also, played college football. He was super over. They had managed to pack another 5,000 people into that place because they had sold like 35,000 tickets right when J.J. Dillon, and they start off with recaps of Thunder where J.J. Dillon announced Goldberg versus Hogan. And that was 4 days before, and they had packed 5,000 more people in there because I think he said there were like 35,000 tickets sold. Now, so that was like about half capacity, or just a little bit over. They'd had a curtain down half the Georgia Dome. I just wonder what they could have done with a little bit more promotion. 50,000, 60,000 people. Imagine that crowd. Even for WCW, they could have had that many paying fans, and it would have been such a big moment. But this is the show we got. So the recaps, okay, was what it was. Hogan comes out, and Hogan comes out and cuts a promo that just goes on forever. No wonder Hogan and Trump are so similar in attitude, or friends, because they're both orange and both want to fuck their own daughters. That being said, Hogan, one of the biggest draws in wrestling. Can't deny that. Cannot deny that. As much as I may not care for the man himself, and I'm going to stand by that, can't deny what he's done for the business. Has he harmed the business? Sure. Has he helped the business? Sure. We could argue that Vince has, done just as much harm and help as Hogan. But that's the story for another day. This is all built around the big match, Hogan versus Goldberg. Can Goldberg become the first undefeated man in the history of our sport? This is the single greatest undefeated world heavyweight champion in the history of our sport. Not going to attempt to do a Schiavone impression. Nothing against Tony Schiavone at all. It just became kind of a meme before memes existed. Like jokes of like people, making that kind of stuff, because some variations of that line would be said. But Hogan comes out with the Disciple, with Eric Bischoff, with Miss Elizabeth in black leather. That was a bonus. And Hogan cuts an extremely long-winded promo, much like my long-winded introduction, where it all boils down to him saying, Goldberg, you got to face one of my NWO brothers to get to me. It's going to be Scott Hall, who unfortunately wasn't in the best of shape at this point. I'm not going to pick on Scott Hall for his substance abuse issues or any of that. He had his demons. He's addressed his demons. He continues to address his demons, and he's doing well. That's all I'm going to say about that. I could always say that in another video about how I feel Scott Hall should have been world champion, and if his head had been on straight more, it would have worked. But it's going to face that. Scott Hall's going to face Goldberg. Cool. Mean Gene cuts a promo with some guy with the last name of Martin and a NASCAR giveaway. Oh well. Dean Malenko versus Booker T. And this, by the way, the show was 6 days before Bash at the Beach 98, a pay-per-view where you're normally supposed to have your entire card set up. And 12 matches. And with commercials taken out, you take out the recaps in the beginning, the recaps and the promo and stuff like that, 15 minutes. So you're going just about 2 hours, not including the other recaps, and you had 12 matches on there. That showed just how little bit the wrestling meant. Dean Malenko versus Booker T for the WCW TV title. Dean had a shot against Jericho a little bit later down the road at Bash at the Beach. Booker T was going to face Bret Hart. And the match was over in 5 minutes after Jericho had distracted Dean Malenko, and he got an axe kick while getting through the ropes, 1, 2, 3. And they would hype Jericho and Malenko a little bit later. Canyon and Raven was short, DQ, I think. Lodi interfered, ref didn't see that. Saturn interfered. But even though these matches are supposed to be Raven's rules, I guess the ref just threw the match out and stuff like that. Saturn threw Canyon, which is weird because they were supposed to team up on Thunder a little bit later, I think like that very week. And that was a mess. They had, WCW had gotten to the point, it was just ridiculous how much weekly TV there was. Everything was overexposed. The feuds were overdone. Everything was muted. Nothing really meant anything or whatever. Wait, I'm describing WWE 2018 currently, even with the great talent roster that they have. Too much weekly TV. Moving on. This match was, Canyon had thrown Raven around a bit. Then, like I said, Saturn interfered. Lodi I never really cared for, but Lodi was that kind of, sniveling, stupid heel where he did his job. I mean, he was supposed to get people to hate him. I never thought he was anything special in the ring or whatever. And him and Lenny Lane as West Hollywood Blondes. Lenny Lane I called the discount Chris Jericho. And nothing against Lenny Lane. That's just how they presented him. And it was kind of ridiculous. I don't know. I never really cared for it necessarily. But then, yeah, that happened. Like I said, the ref threw it out. Buff Bagwell arrives in a wheelchair with his mother. His mother was not in a wheelchair. His mother was pushing him. This was another injury angle they were doing. Buff had suffered a legit neck injury, and he was in a wheelchair. And this guy, I don't know. I didn't necessarily care for it. I didn't really like what they did with Buff Bagwell. I didn't really like Buff Bagwell, honestly. He was a really good heel, not a very good babyface. He was decent in the ring, but he wasn't that good. And he was decent on promos, but he wasn't that good otherwise. I mean, there's a reason why his career flamed out pretty damn quickly, because he wasn't very good. He had a 10-year career in WCW, and I can't really name much of anything else he did of note that wasn't pretty bad. Whether it was his fault or not, it was pretty bad. His WWE run, that I think that's more on WWE than it was on him. But anyway, yeah, never liked Buff Bagwell. They hyped Bash at the Beach 98 a lot with promos from Karl Malone, DDP, various other people that were involved, because they were hyping up DDP and Karl Malone versus Hogan and Dennis Rodman. And yes, I will be doing a 20-year reflection on Bash at the Beach 98. I reviewed every single WCW pay-per-view, including Bash at the Beach. I think I reviewed Bash at the Beach, like all the way, like Bash at the Beach history and stuff like that, and put it all in a giant, compilation, and did short reviews of them. But I'll dive a little more deep into Bash at the Beach 98, because that one actually had a pretty good main event overall. I mean, Malone was a really great athlete. Rodman was off, but I'll save that for the review. Hey, they had an interview with DDP and Karl Malone. Okay, cool. We're going to beat up Rodman and Hogan. Basically it. Mongo McMichael, peace. Hated Steve Mongo McMichael. Hate him. Absolutely hate him. Not saying that he wasn't a legit athlete, because he was on the, 85 Super Bowl champion Chicago Bears team. But the guy was shit. The guy was shit on commentary, shit on promos, shit in the ring. He just was. And the fact is, they treated him like he was going to be the second coming in this interview. And to find out more about Mongo McMichael, he'd been with the company for about 3 goddamn years by this point. Or at least close to it. Like close to 3 years. It was fucking ridiculous. Scott Putski defeated Scotty Riggs. And nothing against Scotty Riggs. I like Scotty Riggs. Scott Putski was also there, but it was sloppy. It was bad. And Scott Putski won. Nothing against Riggs. Putski just wasn't his dad, and he wasn't that good. Wasn't bad guy, but they hyped up Goldberg's victories from his first to his 50th to his 100th, and then to the most recent one when he beat Scott Hall, which is a little bit later. Jericho piece with J.J. Dillon and Dean Malenko. Jericho's out there cutting a promo, and he's trying to bait Dean Malenko, because it was a no contact order. If Dean Malenko touched him, then he would forfeit the match. If Jericho touched Malenko before the match at the pay-per-view, then that would be the end of that, and Jericho would actually forfeit the Cruiserweight title or something like that. Well, Jericho get bait Malenko, and then it seemed like he eased back. But then he talked about his dad being on the road, and his mom wanting, human companionship and stuff like that. And he says, "Have you ever wondered why you and your brother look nothing alike?" Ooh, Jericho. Jericho, you saucy individual. Good Lord, that was crazy. that was insane. That was a pretty damn good line. I mean, the Jericho-Malenko feud's often forgotten about as being pretty good in WCW especially. But that was cool. And then you had Ultimo Dragon versus Chris Jericho. And this was really, really, really short because Dean Malenko came out and interfered. And then got arrested and hauled off. Johnny Swinger. I think that's Johnny Swinger. I can't name really anything he did. I think he had a stint in Impact. Versus Chavo Guerrero. I mean, and Guerrero had a construction helmet on because recently Eddie had shaved part of his head. Or part of his hair, and they were going to have a hair versus hair match. Well, Chavo announced they were going to have a hair versus hair match. Him and Eddie, not him and Swinger, even though that'd be funny. Chavo ends up cutting Swinger's hair. It was not a very good match. It really wasn't. It was just more hype for Bash at the Beach. And then Disco Inferno and Alex Wright with Tokyo Magnum also there versus the Public Enemy. And I'm not sure what the hell happened here. Tokyo goes through a table after Disco and Wright had ran off. The Disco Wright. I hate Disco Inferno. Hate the guy. The guy sounds like what would happen if you gave a Kermit the Frog meme life, only without the humor. He's not funny. He was never a good wrestler. He was lousy in the ring, honestly. And the only reason I think he was even around for a while is because Vince Russo liked him, which, whatever. I think Disco even chimes in on Russo's show from time to time. And the only reason I know that is because people have actually sent me clips. I'm not going to listen to a full episode of Russo's show because I have taste. And anybody that wants to actually listen to anything legit about wrestling from people who were in the business, like Cornette and others, should actually want to listen to something other than Russo. Hate Russo. Hate him. There's my one, maybe possibly two per list. But yeah, Disco Inferno couldn't stand. I liked Alex Wright. And Public Enemy was a decent enough team. But then after leaving, after Wright and Disco left, this is what happened. They came back and they started hitting Public Enemy with trash cans, which caused a DQ. I don't know what this match was. But Bagwell interview was trash because I love Atlanta and I just appreciate you fans and stuff like that. And he never came across as genuine. I'm not saying he didn't like the Atlanta people. I'm not saying he didn't have fans in Atlanta, but it just didn't come across as genuine because everybody fucking knew he was going to turn heel. Or stay heel, or whatever. and Judy Bagwell was also there. Judy Bagwell on a forklift. Bro. I fucking can't stand Russo's ideas. Russo's a goddamn idiot. The only thing that I know that Russo didn't do, and this is the one thing that I do want to say, even though I despise Russo and would tell him that to his face, even though he'd probably get an order of protection because he's a coward, because he has to be scared of Jim Cornette. He's a fucking coward. I would say that Vince Russo was not responsible for the death of Bret Hart. Or not Bret Hart, but Owen Hart. Now, Bret can be upset at him if he wants, or whatever. Anybody can be upset at Russo if they want. Russo was not responsible for the death of Owen Hart. Saying that right there. That was the fault of the people that, set up the cable stuff and everything and that kind of stuff. It was just a tragic situation, but I'm not going to blame Russo for that. I'll blame him for being an idiot, not knowing what the fuck he's doing, and sounding like a fucking idiot because he wants to put everything on a pole, bro, but whatever. Goldberg versus Scott Hall, it was a bit botchy, which a botch in a Goldberg match, yeah, I'm shocked, really, honestly. And Scott Hall at this point was not in the best shape. He really, mentally or physically, he really wasn't. He looked like he was in good physical shape, but you could just see it in his eyes. Life on the road and personal demons and everything was starting to take a hold. Now he's addressed those. He's doing better. That's great. I'm just saying at this point, it was not good. But yeah, Goldberg, was he defending his U.S. title? I have no idea. Did Goldberg ever defend the U.S. title on TV? I mean, I think he defended it at a pay-per-view once. Because he won it from Raven right after Spring Stampede 98 and then barely defended it. But anyway, you had Malone, DDP, Stop the Disciple, Vincent, and Kurt Hennig just waffling them with chairs. And then Goldberg won. Then you had Psychosis versus Hoovy, and it was short. Hoovy won. The Flock ran down for some reason and beat up both guys. I don't know why. And they cut away to Goldberg's most recent victory. Bash at the Beach, high package. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus a Giant. No, Giant wins, whatever. Hacksaw shouldn't have been wrestling at this point. Nothing against Hacksaw as a person. I just didn't want to see this. It wasn't a good match. Giant calls out Kevin Green. Green knocks him over the top rope with the clothesline. And then grabs Hacksaw's 2x4. and then Scream. I thought Kevin Green was a fine addition, here and there to WCW, because at least it seemed like Kevin Green tried, and he was a legit athlete and actually cared and showed passion and energy, as opposed to Steve Mongo McMichael, who was an idiot. But then again, Kevin Green was still an active football player. Mongo wasn't. DDP versus Jim Neidhart, short. DDP wins. Wolfpack, Sting and Luger versus Kidman and Sick Boy, and literally that right there, me saying that, took longer than the actual match. They beat Kidman and Sick Boy within seconds, I think 30 seconds maybe. It was, let's see, Scorpion Death Drop on Kidman, and then Sick Boy, who I can't even recall who Sick Boy is, and I feel bad because he never seemed like a bad guy, but got in a torture rack, tapped out, okay. You had Conan cut a promo a bit before that, but whatever. Goldberg versus Hogan. WCW World Title match. Big hype, big match feel. Crowd went nuts. Crowd went apeshit. I could talk about this match at length if I want, but there really isn't much to it. Hogan did use his belt at one point, angered Goldberg. Goldberg threw the belt away. I think Goldberg got some weird stuff in his eyes, like some weird body grease or gel that Hogan had on his body, and that's why Goldberg was doing that, which made sense, and it made sense once he explained it. I go, okay, that's why he was doing it, because I kept wondering, Goldberg okay? Did he, get hit by something? Was there a leak in the roof? I had no idea. But, so, yeah. Goldberg ends up getting the victory. You had DDP and Karl Malone run down there, because you had Henning, I wouldn't say Henning and Vincent run down again, because apparently they didn't learn anything, and we're no selling the chair shots, but they didn't learn anything. Diamond Cutter by Malone on Henning or Vincent, I think it was Henning. I don't remember, honestly. It was really so fast. The camera cuts were really fast. Spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3. But here's the thing. Right after the whole thing happened where you had the Diamond Cutter by Malone, Goldberg's poised for the spear. Hits the spear. At this point, shit starts flying in the ring. Not actual shit, though, I don't know. With Atlanta, I might not have been too surprised. But they were throwing cups and toilet paper and stuff like that in the vicinity of the ring or in the ring. And even though the crowd was cheering like crazy for Goldberg, and then he hits a jackhammer, 1, 2, 3, and more shit starts flying in the ring. And more shit's flying up in the air and stuff like that. So people are happy, yet trash is flying in the ring. And I never quite understood that shit. I really never understood why the fuck that was the case. So honestly, I never understood that. I'm like, okay, if this guy's super over with you guys, why the fuck are you hurling shit at the ring? Granted, I wanted to see Hogan's title reign end soon as well. I mean, I had no desire to see him as champion, and after beating Randy Savage, after Randy only had it for one goddamn day after Spring Stampede 98, that was pretty ridiculous, but was what it was, and I was still mad at Hogan for the whole thing at Starrcade 97. Which, yeah, okay, Sting may have not been in the best mindset and stuff like that, but Hogan just was an idiot for what he did. I'm standing by that to this day. You guys can think otherwise if you want. But really, outside of the Goldberg-Hogan match, there was nothing about this show. I mean, if you want to be a completionist and watch it, to watch Bash at the Beach 98, okay. And you can do that with Thunder too if you want. And I will be reviewing Bash at the Beach 98. I will probably actually be reviewing that well before the anniversary of it, which is I think a couple weeks from today when I'm recording this. And then we'll see, I'll see when that uploads, because as many of you may know, for those of you who are still watching, I'm going to be reviewing a ton of New Japan shows coming up. But I still will review some WCW shows. I will also do, I don't know how many reflection shows I'm going to do, but I will do one on the debut of The Ultimate Warrior. August 15th or 17th, 1998. I will be doing one on that. I'm going to hate myself for it because I hate Warrior. But there we go. Anyway, so do you agree, do you disagree with what I said? Like, share, comment, subscribe. Twitter link in the description. It's been Real Honesty with Jar Mifflin, a 20-year reflection on Nitro, and you got more to come, and I will see you soon.